Ken, thanks very much for joining us. Just give me your view, I suppose, on the outlook for 2021, particularly looking at France.
We still have uncertainties in France with the lockdowns still on. Recently, we have seen restrictions getting stricter, and there's probably going to be a few rough weeks in the starts. But overall, France has proven relatively resilient in terms of economy. And you have other situations that strengthens the position of France. Paris remains, and the Paris region, all the more with the Brexit situation, remains one of the remaining global world cities in Europe, the size of New York or Tokyo. Obviously, the EU situation has changed, and it has given even more attractivity to the French market.
And Ken, if we drill down into the sectors, I suppose, where are you seeing the attractive opportunities for 2021?
So we will remain focused on core markets have stayed relatively resilient, either office or even in a certain degree, in a certain extent, retail. But we've seen a realignment on core secure asset and secure tenants in terms of the traditional sectors, which are office and retail. But if I had to see two particular sectors, two particular types that would probably grow even stronger and supported by fundamental trends, I would mention residential in the first place, and also light industrial urban logistics. In the case of residential, I would say that residential investment is no longer a niche sector in Europe. The sector represents almost 25% of the overall investment market, which is impressive compared to a few years ago. Of course, there are significant differences between markets in terms of liquidity. And in that aspect, the French market has some growth opportunity in the residential sector. If you look at Netherlands or Germany, the investment volume share is from 30 to almost 40% of the total investment market, whereas in France, we reach 10 to 15%. So there is some appetite from institutionals to the resi market, traditional residential, but also obviously senior housing, which has a higher yield. And this is based on fundamentals. Demand has consistently outpaced supply in the main markets, and data on building permits show that we have a drop in completions in the short time. So there will always be this imbalance between demand and supply, which would translate into stable income streams for investors in residential. What's striking is that, of course, prime yields in residential are usually higher than high street or office yields, but yields have compressed steadily, and the gap is not so high now. Prime high street yield and office yields are now just only marginally higher than residential. So it should make the residential sector an attractive market, all the more if we're considering the risk premium with government bond yields, and that's on a risk-adjusted basis. It makes the residential sector attractive.
And Ken, you also mentioned there industrial logistics. What are you seeing for that sector?
In terms of urban logistics, AEW has been a historical player in the logistics sector. It's been 20 years now that AEW has invested in logistics. So to say, anticipating the growth of this sector. And now we're monitoring the smaller scale, light industrial and urban logistics. And one of the economic fundamentals that supports this trend is online commerce. Of course, COVID-19 boosted online sales growth during the lockdowns, but it was a longer trend. If you look at 10 years ago, we basically doubled our shares of online sales compared to total retail sales. So it's a long-term trend. And again, France has some margin of improvement or potential in this market. We were in 2012, 5% penetration rate, while in other countries such as the UK or Germany, the share was higher. And now we had already doubled this share. And obviously, COVID-19 further boosted this trend. Of course, we expect the trend to slow a little bit, but consumers will keep their habits of buying online, especially with mobile app powered sales, and it will continue to support the e-commerce expansion. So in our opinion, urban logistics is needed to deal with this growing number of parcels. So we believe in this sector and we're looking into it very seriously. All the more that just as for senior housing, for instance, compared to residential, light industrial and urban logistics have higher yields than logistics, which has become a very prized type of assets among investors.
Great. It'll be really interesting to see, I think, Ken, how how that market develops. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Richard.